They say you never really know someone until you see them at their worst. I thought I knew my husband Larry after 12 years of marriage. Then I watched him pour gasoline around our family home while I was saving lives 20 miles away. The fluorescent lights in the hospital break room flickered above me as I unwrapped my turkey sandwich, the same lunch I'd been eating for 3 years straight. My scrubs still smelled like disinfectant and exhaustion from pulling a double shift in the ICU. Being a nurse wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept my family fed. My phone buzzed against the plastic table, displaying my neighbor Mrs. Madison's number. "Susan, honey, I'm so sorry," her voice cracked through the speaker. "Your house. There's been a fire." The sandwich fell from my hands, lettuce scattering across the floor like confetti at a funeral. Through the window I could see the city skyline, completely unaware that my world was crumbling 20 miles away. My heart hammered against my ribs as I grabbed my keys, my mind racing through mental inventories. Photo albums. Nathan's baby clothes. Mama's wedding ring that I'd inherited. "How bad?" I whispered, though my soul already knew the answer. "Bad, baby. Real bad." I sprinted through the hospital corridors, my sneakers squeaking against the linoleum like dying birds. Other nurses called out, but their voices sounded underwater. My house. My sanctuary. The place where my husband Larry and I had built our dreams, where our 8-year-old son Nathan took his first steps, where we'd planned to grow old together. The 40-minute drive home felt like 40 hours. Every red light was personal torture, every slow car a conspiracy against my desperate need to see my family safe. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as smoke columns appeared on the horizon, dark and ominous against the afternoon sky. The fire trucks were pulling away when I arrived, their red lights painting the neighborhood in hellish hues. Where my 2-story colonial once stood, only blackened bones remained. The white picket fence Larry had installed last summer was now a twisted metal sculpture, melted and grotesque. Neighbors gathered in clusters, their faces wearing that peculiar mix of sympathy and morbid fascination that disasters bring. Fire Chief Roberts approached me, his soot-stained uniform telling its own story. "Mrs. Williams, I'm sorry for your loss. The good news is no one was hurt. Your family evacuated safely." Relief flooded my veins like morphine. "Where are they? Where's my husband and son?" "They're staying with relatives, I believe. Your husband mentioned his sister's place across town." Something cold crawled up my spine. Larry's sister lived 2 hours away, and they hadn't spoken in months after their bitter argument about money. But trauma makes people do strange things, I reasoned. Maybe desperation had forced reconciliation. The chief handed me a business card. "The investigation will take a few days. We'll know more about the cause soon." I stared at the ruins, my mind struggling to process the magnitude of loss. 20 years of memories reduced to ash and twisted metal. The oak tree where Nathan had his treehouse was charred black, its branches reaching toward heaven like skeletal fingers. My rose garden, where I'd spent countless Sunday mornings, was buried under debris and broken dreams. Mrs. Madison appeared beside me, her weathered hand squeezing my shoulder. "I saw the whole thing, honey. Started in the kitchen, spread so fast. Your husband got Nathan out just in time." But something in her eyes didn't match her words. A flicker of uncertainty, maybe even fear. My sister Tanya's guest bedroom felt like a tomb, all beige walls and the smell of vanilla candles that couldn't mask my despair. She'd insisted I stay with her instead of driving to Larry's sister's place in my emotional state. "You need rest, girl. Tomorrow's soon enough for family reunions." I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flames consuming my wedding dress, my grandmother's quilt, Nathan's drawings stuck to the refrigerator with smiley face magnets. At 2 a.m. I remembered the Ring doorbell camera Larry had installed last month. Maybe it caught something. Maybe I could see my family's escape, find some closure in witnessing their safety. I downloaded the app on Tanya's laptop, my fingers trembling as I logged in. The camera had battery backup, so it might have recorded even during the fire. I scrolled backward through the timeline, past the fire trucks, past the smoke, back to when my world was still whole. 3:47 p.m. The timestamp glowed white in the corner as I watched my house in perfect clarity. No flames yet, just an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Then I saw movement on the porch. Larry appeared, but he wasn't running in panic. He was walking calmly, almost casually, carrying a red gas container. My blood turned to ice water. I watched in horror as my husband of 12 years poured gasoline around the foundation of our home, methodical and deliberate. This wasn't a desperate man trying to save his family. This was something else entirely. Nathan appeared next, not crying or afraid, but helping his father carry boxes to Larry's truck. Boxes I recognized, our important documents, photo albums, the jewelry box from my dresser. They were evacuating valuables. Before the fire even started. I rewound the footage, praying I'd misunderstood, that shock had warped my perception. But there it was again, clear as daylight. Larry wasn't saving our family from a fire. He was preparing to start one. The gas container wasn't for the lawn mower. It was an instrument of destruction, wielded by the man I'd trusted with my heart and future. At 4:15 p.m., Larry lit a cigarette on our front porch. He took 3 long drags, then flicked it casually toward the gas-soaked foundation. The flames erupted instantly, hungry and violent, consuming everything I'd worked for in minutes. But instead of horror, instead of panic, Larry's face showed something that made my soul scream. Relief. He actually smiled as he watched our home burn. Not the relieved smile of a man whose family had escaped death, but the satisfied smile of someone watching a plan unfold perfectly. Nathan stood beside him, too young to understand the magnitude of destruction, but old enough to sense this wasn't an accident. My phone buzzed. A text from Larry. "Baby, I'm so sorry about the house. Insurance investigator wants to meet tomorrow. Thank God we're all safe. Love you." The casualness of his lies felt like acid in my throat. I screenshotted everything, my nurse training kicking in. Document everything, preserve evidence. But evidence of what? That my husband had destroyed our home? That our marriage was built on quicksand? I called his number, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hit the buttons. "Susan? Baby, where are you? We're waiting for you at my sister's place." "I saw the footage, Larry." My voice came out steady cold. "I saw what you did." The silence stretched between us like a chasm, filled with 12 years of marriage crumbling into dust. "I can explain everything." The drive to Larry's sister's house felt like traveling to my own execution. Dawn was breaking over the highway, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that mocked my internal darkness. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, hadn't even changed out of my scrubs from yesterday's shift. But I had the ring footage saved on my phone, evidence of my husband's betrayal burning hotter than the flames that consumed our home. Evelyn answered the door with puffy eyes and a guilty expression that confirmed my worst fears. She'd always been Larry's accomplice in family drama, the sister who covered for his mistakes and enabled his bad decisions. But this time the stakes were different. "Where's Nathan?" I demanded, pushing past her into the cramped living room. "Upstairs, sleeping." "Susan, honey, Larry told me what happened." "I'm so sorry." "Stop." My voice cut through her performance like a scalpel. "I know what really happened. The question is, how long have you known?" Her face crumpled, and in that moment I saw the truth. This wasn't a sudden decision born of desperation. This was a conspiracy, planned and executed by the people I'd trusted most. The betrayal tasted like copper pennies and broken promises. Larry appeared at the top of the stairs, no longer the panicked fire victim he'd pretended to be over the phone. His expression was calculating, defensive. "We need to talk." "Yes, we do." I held up my phone, the Ring app still open to the footage of his arson. "Starting with why you burned down our house and lied to the fire department." Nathan appeared behind his father, rubbing sleep from his eyes. My heart shattered seeing my baby boy caught in the middle of this nightmare, innocent and confused by the adult world exploding around him. "Mama." His voice was small, frightened. "Nathan, go watch cartoons in your Aunt Evelyn's room." Larry's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Our son looked between us, sensing the electricity in the air before disappearing upstairs. Smart boy. He'd inherited my ability to read dangerous situations. "Sit down, Susan." Larry's tone had shifted from guilty husband to something harder, more calculating. "You don't understand what you think you saw. I understand arson. I understand insurance fraud. I understand that my husband burned down our house while I was saving lives at the hospital." My voice rose with each word, 8 years of nursing night shifts and double overtime fueling my rage. "What I don't understand is why." Evelyn busied herself in the kitchen, clattering dishes and pretending not to listen. But I caught her nervous glances, the way her hands shook as she poured coffee nobody wanted. Larry sat across from me, and for the first time in our marriage I saw him clearly. Not the charming man who'd swept me off my feet in college. Not the devoted father who coached Nathan's little league team. This was a stranger wearing my husband's face, capable of destruction I'd never imagined. We're drowning, baby. The medical bills from your mom's cancer treatment, Nathan's therapy sessions, the second mortgage we took out when I lost the construction job. We owe everyone. His voice carried the weight of desperation, but something else too. Premeditation. The house was worth more burned than standing. Insurance will pay off everything, the mortgages, credit cards, all of it. We can start fresh. You burned down our home for money? The words felt surreal leaving my mouth. Our memories, our son's childhood bedroom, my grandmother's china collection, all for money? For our future, Susan. For Nathan's college fund. For a fresh start somewhere new. I stared at him, this man I'd shared a bed with for 12 years, wondering when he'd become a stranger. How long? My question hung in the air like smoke. How long have you been planning this? Larry's eyes darted to Evelyn, who had abandoned all pretense of kitchen busywork and now stood in the doorway like a guilty co-conspirator. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. The weekend trips to his sister's house. The hushed phone conversations. The sudden interest in our homeowner's insurance policy. 3 months, Evelyn whispered, her voice barely audible. Ever since the bank threatened foreclosure. 3 months. While I'd been working overtime shifts to keep us afloat, my husband had been plotting to burn down our life. The betrayal cut deeper than any scalpel, more precise than surgical instruments, reaching places I didn't know could bleed. Who else knows? I demanded, my nurse instincts cataloging evidence like symptoms in a medical chart. Mrs. Madison said she saw the fire start in the kitchen, but the footage shows you pouring gas around the foundation. Larry's composure finally cracked. Mrs. Madison doesn't know anything. She saw what we wanted her to see, smoke coming from the kitchen window. Evelyn called her at the right time, told her to look out her window. By then the whole place was going up. The methodical nature of their deception was breathtaking. They'd choreographed every detail, manipulated witnesses, created a false narrative that cast Larry as the heroic father who'd saved his family from a tragic accident. If I hadn't seen the ring footage, I'd have believed it too. The fire investigator will figure it out, I said, grasping for justice in a world that had suddenly turned upside down. Accelerant patterns, burn trajectories, they have science. Larry's smile was cold, calculating. The investigator is Evelyn's ex-husband. Tommy owes me money from a poker game. He'll find whatever caused the fire to be electrical problems in the old wiring. Nathan appeared at the bottom of the stairs, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, one of the few possessions that had been evacuated before the fire. His innocent eyes darted between his parents, reading the tension with the intuitive wisdom children possess. My heart broke watching him navigate this minefield of adult betrayal. Mama, are you sad about our house? His 8-year-old voice carried weight beyond his years. Daddy said we're gonna get a new one. A bigger one with a swimming pool. I knelt to his level, fighting back tears that would only confuse him more. Sometimes grown-ups make very complicated decisions, baby. Right now, Mama needs to understand what happened. Larry stepped forward, his hand settling on Nathan's shoulder in a gesture that looked protective but felt possessive. Son, why don't you go play with your iPad in the other room? Mama and I need to finish our grown-up talk. But Nathan didn't move. He studied his father's face with the careful attention of a child who'd learned to read dangerous moods. Daddy, why did you pour the gas around our house? The silence that followed was deafening. Larry's face went white while Evelyn actually gasped. Our 8-year-old son had been watching from his bedroom window. He'd witnessed his father's arson and, in his childlike honesty, was asking the question that would destroy Larry's carefully constructed lies. Nathan, Larry's voice was strained, what do you think you saw? I saw you walking around the house with the redkin from the garage. Then you threw your cigarette and the fire started. You told me it was a secret between men, remember? My world tilted on its axis. Larry hadn't just committed arson. He'd made our son an accomplice, sworn him to secrecy, corrupted his innocent understanding of right and wrong. The betrayal ran deeper than our marriage, deeper than our finances. It had infected our child's moral compass. You made our son lie for you. My voice was deadly quiet, the kind of calm that precedes hurricanes. You turned an 8-year-old boy into your accomplice. Larry's face flushed red, desperation replacing calculation. He doesn't understand what he saw. Kids misinterpret things all the time. Tell them, Evelyn. Tell her how confused children can get. But Evelyn had retreated into the kitchen, unwilling to pile more lies onto an already tottering tower of deception. Nathan stood between us, clutching his dinosaur, watching his world fracture along lines he couldn't yet comprehend but could certainly feel. I'm not confused, Nathan said with the stubborn honesty that made me proud and terrified simultaneously. I know what happened. Daddy made the fire on purpose. The truth hung in the air like a verdict, delivered by the most innocent voice in the room. Larry lunged forward, desperation making him clumsy, reaching for Nathan as if physical control could somehow contain the damage. But I was faster, my mother's instincts overriding everything else. Don't touch him. I pulled Nathan against me, feeling his small body trembling. Don't you dare touch our son. Susan, be reasonable. Think about what you're doing. If this gets out, I'll go to prison. Nathan will grow up without a father. We'll lose everything anyway, and for what? The house is already gone. His words revealed the core of his character. Even now, caught in his own web of lies, Larry was thinking about self-preservation. Not about the trauma he'd inflicted on our child, not about the trust he'd shattered, not about the legal and moral implications of his actions. Just about saving his own skin. You should have thought about that before you turned our son into a criminal. I lifted Nathan into my arms, surprised by how light he felt, how fragile. Before you made him keep secrets that could destroy his life. I carried Nathan to Evelyn's living room, settling him on the couch with his iPad while my mind raced through impossible choices. Every option led to devastation: report Larry's arson and destroy my son's father figure, or stay silent and become complicit in insurance fraud. The weight of the decision pressed against my chest like physical pain. Nathan tugged on my scrub top. Mama, am I in trouble? The question shattered what remained of my composure. This beautiful, innocent boy thought he'd done something wrong by telling the truth. Larry's manipulation had been so thorough that Nathan feared punishment for honesty, a perversion that made my soul ache. No, baby. You're never in trouble for telling the truth. That's what brave people do. They tell the truth even when it's scary. From the kitchen, I could hear Larry and Evelyn arguing in harsh whispers. Their conspiracy was fracturing under the weight of an 8-year-old's honesty, their carefully laid plans crumbling like the foundation of our burned house. My phone buzzed with a text from the fire investigator. Mrs. Williams, we need to meet this morning. There are some inconsistencies in the witness statements that require clarification. Tommy might be Evelyn's ex-husband, but he was still a professional. Someone else had seen something, or the evidence wasn't as easy to manipulate as Larry had assumed. The truth had a way of surfacing like oil rising to the top of water. I looked at Nathan, absorbed in his cartoon, blissfully unaware that his next words could send his father to prison. The power to destroy our family rested in the hands of a child who still believed in superheroes and happy endings. Nathan, I said gently, if someone asks you about the fire, what are you going to say? He looked up at me with those enormous brown eyes that mirrored my own. I'm gonna tell the truth like you taught me. Fire investigator Tommy Hernandez looked nothing like the corrupt official Larry had described. His weathered face carried the intensity of a man who took his job seriously, who understood that his findings could mean the difference between justice and insurance fraud. We sat in a sterile conference room at the fire station, the smell of coffee and cigarettes mixing with my anxiety. Mrs. Williams, I've reviewed the preliminary evidence, and I have concerns about the fire's origin point. He spread photographs across the table, images of my destroyed home from angles that told a story I recognized from the Ring footage. The burn patterns suggest multiple ignition sources, which is unusual for an accidental electrical fire. My mouth felt dry as desert sand. What does that mean exactly? It means someone used an accelerant. The question is whether it was intentional or if your husband was trying to put out a small fire with gasoline, which happens more often than you'd think. People panic, grab the wrong container, make a tragic mistake. He was offering Larry an out, a plausible alternative to arson charges. But Nathan's witness testimony, if he chose to give it, would demolish that merciful interpretation. I sat at a crossroads where every path led to pain. I need to ask about your family's financial situation. Were you facing any significant debts or pressures that might have made the insurance money particularly attractive? The question hung between us like a loaded weapon. One word from me could trigger an investigation that would uncover Larry's premeditation, the conspiracy with Evelyn, the corruption of our son. But silence felt like betrayal of everything I'd taught Nathan about honesty and integrity. We had some medical bills from my mother's cancer treatment, I said carefully. And Larry lost his construction job last year. But I work full-time at the hospital. We were managing. Tommy nodded, making notes. I'll need to interview your son and husband separately. Sometimes children see things adults miss. My heart stopped. In 2 hours, Nathan would be alone in this room with this investigator, carrying the truth that could destroy his father. I found Nathan in Evelyn's backyard, building elaborate cities in the sandbox Larry had installed last summer during happier times. His concentration was absolute as he constructed bridges and tunnels, creating order from chaos, perhaps the only control an 8-year-old could exert over his crumbling world. Baby, we need to talk about what you saw the day our house burned down. I sat beside him in the sand, ignoring the damage to my scrubs. A man is going to ask you questions about it today. Nathan looked up, a smudge of dirt across his cheek. The fire policeman? Daddy told me not to talk to him. He said it was still our secret. Larry's manipulation ran deeper than I'd realized. Even now, facing investigation, he was coaching our son to lie, poisoning his moral development with every whispered instruction. The man I'd married had become someone capable of sacrificing his child's integrity to save his own skin. Nathan, remember what I taught you about secrets? There are good secrets like surprise birthday parties and bad secrets like when someone asks you to lie about something dangerous. I cupped his small face in my hands, those brown eyes reflecting my own pain. What your daddy did with the fire. That's a bad secret. And bad secrets hurt people. But Daddy said if I tell, he'll go away forever. The raw honesty of his fear broke my heart. Larry had effectively held himself hostage in an 8-year-old's mind, making Nathan responsible for his father's fate. It was emotional blackmail of the cruelest kind, perpetrated against the most vulnerable victim. Baby, your daddy made choices that grown-ups have to face consequences for. That's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to protect him from his own decisions. I pulled him close, feeling his small body relax against mine. But telling the truth, that's your job. That's what makes you brave. Nathan pulled back to look at me. Will you still be my mama if I tell? Always and forever, no matter what. 3 hours later, I sat in Tommy Hernandez's office while Nathan spoke with the child psychologist who specialized in interviewing young witnesses. Through the window, I could see Larry's truck in the parking lot. He'd arrived for his scheduled interview, unaware that his 8-year-old son had already dismantled his carefully constructed lies with devastating honesty. Nathan had told the truth, all of it, with the clear-eyed innocence that adults lose somewhere along the way. The gasoline container, the methodical preparation, the cigarette flicked with casual arson, even the boxes of valuables loaded before the fire started. My son had witnessed his father's premeditation and, with courage that humbled me, had chosen honesty over protecting a man who'd manipulated him into silence. Tommy emerged from the interview room with Nathan holding his hand, looking smaller than his 8 years but somehow stronger too. Mrs. Williams, we have enough evidence to proceed with charges against your husband. I'm sorry this is happening to your family. Through the glass doors, I watched 2 officers approach Larry's truck. He tried to run, actually ran through the parking lot like a character in a bad movie, but desperation doesn't outrun justice. They caught him before he reached the street, cuffing him while neighbors and fire station personnel watched the final act of his spectacular self-destruction. Nathan slipped his hand into mine. I did the right thing, didn't I, Mama? You did the bravest thing, baby. You told the truth when it was hard, and that's what heroes do. 6 months later, we stood in the ruins of our old house, watching a construction crew break ground for Habitat for Humanity homes. Larry had been sentenced to 5 years for arson and insurance fraud. Evelyn had received probation for conspiracy. The insurance company had denied our claim, but honestly, I was grateful. I didn't want money built on lies and manipulation. Nathan and I had moved into a small apartment across town, starting over with nothing but our integrity intact. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest. Cling. Built on truth instead of deception. Mama, Nathan said, watching the bulldozers push aside the last remnants of our old life. I'm not sad about the house anymore. Neither was I. Sometimes you have to burn down everything fake to build something real. And what we were building together, this new life based on truth and courage, was stronger than anything that had stood on this ground before. The ashes of our old life fertilized something better. Something worthy of the brave little boy who'd chosen honesty when the adults around him had chosen deception. In the end, that was worth more than any house insurance money could buy. Thanks for listening to the amazing story we put together for you. Was this story worth your time? Drop your thoughts in the comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next upload.